Hello, I'm Alex from Ani Best Recaps, and I'd love to tell you a story. We stand before the dark and foreboding castle of the Demon Lord, where a group of adventurers finally arrives at the gate after discovering the enemy leader's location. The group's mage believes that Yuga is capable of leading the team to victory and calls his companions together for this final battle. With that, the castle gate opens and red eyes can be seen, along with ghastly groans echoing from inside. Yet without showing a trace of fear, our protagonist enters with his friends, and they immediately come face to face with one of the Demon Lord's bodyguards, a minion who displays an unsettling confidence despite being vastly outnumbered. The mage casts a spell at him, but the demon cancels it with incredible ease. Next, a warrior steps forward and unleashes several sword strikes, but the opponent is fast enough to evade each attack and then kick the swordsman back into place. Then a companion casts a support spell on the leader to increase his power, and he feels ready to attack with his Excalibur skill. At that moment, the demon counters with Infinite Darkness, a spell so strong it instantly devours the attack and explodes over the adventurers. After taking such overwhelming damage, the young man wonders if this is the end as he slowly closes his eyes, and I have to say the anime already caught my attention here because of the sheer power gap. Meanwhile, the demon approaches the group and is left speechless by the beauty of the priestess. At that moment, one of his subordinates asks their captain if they should finish off the enemies and the superior jolts, remembering he had ordered the minions to stay hidden. The three underlings notice their leader staring strangely at the girl, but he insists he is only deciding what to do with the four adventurers. The minions assumed they would eliminate the humans, but the captain instead orders them to dump the enemies in a nearby village, and as the beautiful priestess is carried outside, the demon feels the sadness of parting with such a woman. A month later, one of the Demon Lord's right-hand men asks Yoki how many times those unbearable heroes have tried to get past him, and the captain answers Lord Zakal that he has been challenged exactly 13 times. Zakal says those heroes are worthless if they keep losing to someone like him, then bursts out laughing, triggering laughter from the other demons around him. The Demon Lord asks why the Guardian hasn't killed the heroes, and he explains that useless people like them aren't worth the effort. If that's the case, the Lord says he'll let the subordinates handle it, but knowing they won't be able to defeat the heroes and not wanting to kill that beautiful girl, the guard promises he'll take care of it. Upon leaving the throne room, the man thinks to himself that the heroes' lives will be in danger if he spares them again. Ironically, the captain is strong enough to hold off the entire quartet alone, but they certainly have enough power to defeat the Demon Lord. In any case, while he reflects on the situation, the entire world is being controlled by his master, and it's best to resolve this before those humans truly find themselves in hot water. The next day, the group returns to challenge the Guardian again, calling Raven to attack with a new strategy. The leader forms a duo to corner the opponent, but the enemy is too strong to restrain and ends up slamming both of them into the wall. Seeing that things look bad, the priestess runs to heal her allies and tells Makana to hold the foe off as long as possible. To make sure the demon stays away, the sorceress fires her strongest spells, but none of them work, giving the unwanted guests a small break. The antagonist waits for the girl to heal her friends before delivering a threatening speech. Once back on his feet, the hero asks Cecilia to buff him, and once she does, he uses Excalibur again, this time gathering a far greater amount of energy in hopes of finally defeating the biggest obstacle. After the skill detonates on top of the demon, the boy watches closely to see the result, but as the smoke clears completely unharmed, the guard asks when these humans will finally understand they cannot defeat him. The hero replies that they must bring down the Demon Lord at any cost. In that case, the Guardian demands they leave the priestess in the castle, and then he'll let the others pass. Naturally, the leader refuses, but Makana tries to convince him otherwise because they have no chance against this man, and as difficult as it is, someone must choose between the life of one girl and the life of the entire world. Hearing this, the young man becomes anxious, trying to think of a solution, but Cecilia tells her friends to go ahead and sacrifices herself for the group. The protagonist promises to come back for her later, and the demon keeps his word, opening the door for the heroes to pass. When the three leave, the priestess knows she doesn't come close to matching this enemy, but she promises to fight to the end as she fires a holy laser. The demon absorbs the attack and quickly raises his hands in surrender, saying his name to the human. She asks why anyone would introduce themselves to someone they are about to kill, and he explains that if he really wanted to kill her, he would have done it long ago. In truth, he gathers courage to confess that he fell in love with her from the first moment he saw her, and so he invites her on a date. Terrified by this bombshell, Cecilia screams and apologizes to the man. Thinking that was a no, the captain concludes he has no chance and starts planning his self-immolation for later. Meanwhile, assuming the demon is pretending to be nice so he can strike from behind, the priestess tries to attack first as he turns around, but she gives up when she notices that he truly isn't trying to resist. She asks him why, and he says there's no reason left to live after being rejected by the one he loved. Besides, even if he stays alive, all he has to do is remain inside that room to protect the Lord, and he doesn't even have permission to go out. Cecilia accuses the demon of lying, because all demons are cruel, including their leader. The boy explains that he may look like a monster, but he was actually reincarnated from another world and is human on the inside. Since that's the case, the girl asks why he serves the demon lord if he could defeat him with his vast power. Our guy explains that if he did that, he would be appointed as the next lord, something he doesn't want. Because of that, he spends his life confined every day with no chance to do anything. What he wanted was to put an end to his own pathetic life, but that changed when he met the priestess, who gave him the feeling of what it truly means to be alive for the first time. However, now that he has been rejected, he has once again lost the desire to continue living. Even so, the girl says he shouldn't feel that way, since he has the power to turn this war around. And if he really has even a little humanity inside him, he should use that strength to change the course of the battle. With that, inviting him to fight by her side around the world, she extends her hand and says, "There is still time." Sometime later, in the Kingdom of Clarity, the group of heroes is decorated by the king for their incredible feat of defeating the enemy leader. For that reason, the ruler declares the beginning of a 3-day celebration to commemorate the victory. Meanwhile, watching the capital from afar, the former captain rips off his own horn, presenting himself to the people after their act of bravery. The group of heroes parades through the crowd, and the leader says they wouldn't have won if not for the priestess, which makes Mirika jealous. Back to our protagonist. After removing anything that would imply he was a demon, the young man goes to the city's Adventurers Guild and asks to register at the counter. Out of patience, the attendant finds the form, and the boy fills it out without delay, receiving the identity card that classifies him as an F-rank adventurer. The clerk also tells the kid not to lose that thing, especially over the next 3 days, because the rest of the staff was released for the festival. Anyway, the man introduces himself as Clayman and wishes the rookie luck. Later at an inn, the boy throws a good amount of coins onto a table and, satisfied with the money he earned on his first day, believes he could live a stable life and confess to Cecilia again. Sometime later, upon entering the guild, he hears 2 adventurers talking about a boy who is rising in rank extremely fast. That very boy walks up to Clayman with 5 different missions and says he came to collect all the rewards, while the clerk wants to know why this kid always insists on being served by him. The boy explains that he got used to the clerk, and besides, he works fast. Putting that aside, the man asks who this boy really is, and he nervously replies that he's just an ordinary adventurer. Clayman doesn't believe someone who rose from rank F to D in just 1 week can be called ordinary. Still, since the boy hasn't done anything illegal, the attendant can't investigate him, so he drops the matter. At that moment, disguised so she won't be recognized, the priestess walks up to the counter and invites the boy to her house to talk. Obviously, the supposed demon isn't going to let that chance slip away, so shortly afterward they arrive at the mansion by carriage. One of the gate guards is eager for the beautiful woman to return, but when he sees a kid stepping out of her carriage, the big guy approaches him with hostility. The lady of the house appears to scold the guard, while another guard pulls him away before things get worse. Inside the mansion, the priestess apologizes since she should have found him earlier, but he doesn't regret the time spent as an adventurer because he was having a lot of fun. He's actually surprised she managed to find him, and she explains that the boy has become the city's main topic because he rose in rank in the blink of an eye. She wants him to leave the Adventurers Guild. She explains that even though the demon lord has been defeated, the human nations will soon restart their usual conflicts in search of supremacy. The signs are clear. For example, the hero has begun receiving several marriage proposals from other nations, and our protagonist understands why, as if the guy didn't already have a premium skin, now he's the most popular man in the world. However, the girl explains that those proposals are simply a way to gain more power and influence. Obviously, the boy will become an S-rank adventurer sooner or later, But the moment he reaches that rank, every eye will turn toward him, and if they find out he's a demon, they might try to use his power to conquer the world. For that reason, she wishes he wouldn't draw so much attention and that he would at least advance more slowly. She could simply hire him, but she doesn't have the budget to sustain an adventurer who earns that much. In return, she kneels and promises she would do anything if he accepts. Faced with that, acting like a complete idiot because he clearly has no idea how to deal with the girl he loves in that position, the boy makes it clear that he only has eyes for her. After laughing at the boy's reaction, the girl is pleased until her mother, Celia Akoran, walks in. The kid holds himself back so he doesn't embarrass himself in front of his future mother-in-law, while Celia explains that one of her maids will deal with the guard who disrespected him. The kid imagines that a big guy like that won't learn any lesson from a little maid, while the mother is actually discussing how many of the guard's bones should remain intact. After settling the matter, the lady reveals that her daughter has received many marriage proposals, including one from the hero. The kid goes crazy and swears he'll show everyone who the real monster is, but the girl tells him to cool it because she already turned down all offers. Seeing that this young man clearly likes her daughter, the mother proposes that he marry her. Extremely nervous, the boy looks at his beloved and explains that since he was already rejected once, what he wants now is to rise in life and confess to her again when he is stable because he wants to respect her feelings. Hearing that, the lady of the house says the boy passed the test and he is always welcome. After this conversation, the two meet in the garden to say their goodbyes and decide that from now on, they'll address each other by their first names, a big step in intimacy for the two of them. A little while later, we see our protagonist in the middle of one of his hero quests, and the situation is so insane that something which would normally take a full week to complete, he manages to resolve in just a single day. However, at the exact moment he prepares to head back home, he is suddenly attacked by 3 unknown assailants who launch a coordinated offensive. The young man tries to defend himself, but he soon realizes that those faces are extremely familiar to him. In fact, they are his former subordinates from back when he worked at the Demon Lord's castle, and, since he doesn't want to fight his old friends, he calls for a timeout and reveals his true identity. Everyone is overjoyed to see that the former captain is alive, but Duke also shows himself to be furious because the protagonist practically abandoned them when the hero group attacked. Because he wasn't there to take care of things as usual, the humans managed to reach the throne room and defeat the sovereign. It is almost as if the young man had let the heroes pass on purpose, and to top it all off, he now looks like a human for some bizarre reason. The youth asks everyone to calm down and guarantees he has an excellent motive for what he did, so the 3 wait to hear the explanation. But when he reveals that all of this happened because he has a crush on the priestess of the hero group, the demons simply cannot process the information. The protagonist makes it clear that he plans to live as a human from now on, warning them that they no longer need to see him as captain and are free to follow their own paths. However, they refuse to leave, as they prefer to stay close by, and besides that, they are dying of curiosity to meet the woman who stole the boss's heart. The lad explains that this is impossible, because if anyone saw them, it would cause widespread panic in the city. The subordinates argue that this isn't a problem, since they can hide their demonic characteristics the same way he did, and faced with such insistence, the young man eventually agrees, although he warns that blending in with humans won't be as easy as they imagine. Later that day, the former captain takes his subordinates to meet Cecilia after disguising them, but the process was much more brutal than expected, especially for Happiness, since the young man had to pluck her feathers one by one. Everyone sits down to have tea, and the priestess says it is a pleasure to meet them, commenting that, although she knows they are demons, they don't even seem to be. Duke explains that they all did their best to look human, and, in his case, being a Dullahan, the protagonist fused his head into the armor so it wouldn't go rolling around. The big guy seems to be getting along very well with the hostess, which leaves our protagonist a bit jealous, since the subordinate never talked that much with him. And now, in front of a cute girl, he won't stop chatting. The demon justifies that he didn't talk much before because he simply loathed the boss. The former captain had a reputation for being a complete shut-in at the castle, and even when his superior shouted for him to go out and kill some humans, the lad only threatened to give the master a beating until he gave up and left him in peace. Duke couldn't stand this behavior and, one day, invaded the youth's room to teach him a lesson, assuming an isolated loser would be an easy target, but he ended up getting the worst of it. After that, he became a loyal subordinate, and although he held a grudge over the beating for a while, he ended up accepting the young man's leadership. He believes the same happened with Happiness and Shake, but speaking of them, The warrior realizes he has no idea where the two have gone. It would be terrible if anyone besides Cecilia discovered the truth, so they enter the mansion to look for them, and end up finding the priestess's mother in the garden with Sheikh sleeping on her lap. The woman notices them approaching and asks if they know the boy, so they explain that the little one is a friend. The protagonist apologizes for any trouble he might have caused, but the mother says there is no need to apologize because she loves spending time with children. She found Sheikh running through the garden, and instead of worrying about insignificant details of how he got in there, decided to play tag with him until the little one got tired and fell asleep. Since Sheikh is safe, the lad asks if she saw a girl, and the woman confirms it, saying the headmaid took her inside a short while ago. Sensing the smell of trouble, everyone runs into the interior of the mansion, and they are surprised to see Happiness being trained in perfect maid etiquette. Sophia explains to the group that she was just finishing the training of the new employee, but Cecilia informs her that the young woman is not a maid, but rather a friend. The headmaid apologizes for the misunderstanding and says she can leave if she wants, but to everyone's surprise, Happiness decides she wants to stay, as she found the work of a maid much more fun than she imagined. With Sophia's approval, she officially becomes an employee of the house. At the end of the day, everyone prepares to leave and wishes good luck to the new maid. But before the protagonist can get away, Cecilia's mother pulls him aside. She mentions that her daughter hasn't been able to relax for weeks and plans to force her to take a day off, suggesting that if the lad wanted to ask her on a date, that would be the ideal moment. This is one of the best opportunities the youth has ever received, and he does not intend to waste it. On the appointed day, the priestess arrives in her carriage, and the young man is dazzled by how beautiful she looks. He promises to do everything in his power so that she enjoys the rest to the fullest, and the girl finds it funny that he takes this so seriously, but confesses to being anxious about the plans. While they walk, Cecilia notices that the local bakery has a new type of cake and suggests they stop there later, while the protagonist can hardly take his eyes off her because of how enchanting she seems. So far, everything is going very well, and the young lady seems to be truly enjoying herself. They pass by an accessory shop and are about to enter, but it happens that Yuga and Makana were also passing by there. As soon as he recognizes his friend, the hero calls her, completely ignoring our protagonist. He says it's a crazy coincidence that everyone took the day off on the same day and suggests they spend the rest of the time together. The priestess tries to refuse politely, explaining she was already with the lad, and upon hearing his name, Yuga feels like he has seen him somewhere before, but decides to leave that aside for now. The hero insists that everyone enter the shop together and barely gives time for objections. Makana is upset with the situation because the only day she convinced Yuga to go out with her was ruined. She notices that the protagonist was also on a date and wishes him good luck, thinking that if he wins over the priestess, the hero will have no choice but to focus on her. Inside, the lad reunites with Cecilia and offers a gift as a way of thanking her for all the help she has given him. Yuga sees the scene, and jealousy hits hard, causing him to shove himself between the two and say he wants to choose gifts for everyone, clearly trying to outperform the rival. The protagonist chooses a necklace he thinks will look great on the girl, while the hero just picks the most expensive pendant in the shop because he doesn't know what else to buy. While trying to make her use the accessory, he accidentally knocks off the young lady's disguise and, without the hat and glasses, everyone in the shop instantly recognizes the members of the hero group. They are surrounded by fans and chased down the street, which causes our protagonist to be separated from Cecilia. While trying to find her, he ends up bumping into Sir Raven, who is being cornered by a group of girls and looks very uncomfortable. The lad decides to help and distracts the crowd by pointing in Yuga's direction before pulling Raven into an alley. After losing the fans, the youth expected at least a thank you, but the warrior remains in silence. However, when he is leaving, Raven asks him to wait, and the protagonist immediately understands the reason for such silence. His voice sounds exactly like that of a teenage girl. The knight avoids speaking in public for fear that they will laugh at him, but the lad guarantees he won't mock him after all. Everyone has their insecurities. Raven feels relieved to find someone understanding, but soon the protagonist remembers he needs to look for Cecilia and runs off. The rest of the day passes without further problems, but the next morning, the youth discovers that the priestess has come down with a fever due to stress. She was already close to her limit, and having to deal with that crowd was the last straw, making the young man feel guilty. Cecilia's mother explains that he doesn't need to feel that way, as it is just a mild cold and her daughter isn't mad at him, but on the other hand, She is furious with Yuga and intends to have a serious conversation about boundaries with the hero. In fact, the hero tried to visit her as soon as he heard the news, but the maids kicked him out at the gate. The mother suggests it would be good for the girl to see a friend during recovery and asks the lad to go visit her. Sophia takes him to the room and announces he is there, which makes the priestess enter a panic and ask him to wait outside while she tidies things up. The head maid guarantees there is no reason for concern, because she already put away all of the mistress's toys, but hearing this out loud is even more embarrassing for the young woman. The lad enters and sits beside the bed, apologizing for what happened, but the girl says she doesn't blame him. However, she says that if he really feels guilty, he can compensate her by going out on another date as soon as she recovers. The protagonist is stunned because he just received a direct invitation and celebrates with such enthusiasm that he ends up shouting, which makes Sophia enter the room and kick him out politely so as not to worsen the patient's condition. On the way home, he notices Raven walking nervously toward the mansion and gets curious. The knight admits he is trying to build up courage to confess to the girl he likes, since she was the only one who didn't laugh at his voice. The lad encourages his friend, saying he is tall, handsome, and famous, and since the girl already accepted his voice, he has great chances of success. Raven realizes he is right and decides to go ahead with the confession, leaving the protagonist proud. However, it soon clicks that the knight is going exactly to Cecilia's house, which means the lad may have just created more competition for himself. And that's where the episode ends, and I must confess that this second episode really ramped up the comedy, especially with that final plot twist of Raven revealing himself as a heavyweight rival for our priestess's heart. The guy is a good person, but our protagonist better watch out, because besides having to put up with the inconvenient hero Yuga, he is now given a little push exactly to the one who could steal his place at the mansion. Did you guys like it and want a continuation? Then let me know in the comments if you want the next part. Smash that like button and the hype to support this video, and subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any news.